Exposed. Why churches don't want you to know about other messiahs. Proof that Jesus wasn't the only savior. Churches hate this. Did you know the Messiah story you've been told might be incomplete? That there are forbidden versions of this prophecy that were deliberately erased from sacred texts? Buckle up, because what you're about to discover today could shatter everything you believe about salvation, faith, and your own spiritual destiny. Most of us grew up with one powerful, unquestionable narrative: Jesus Christ, the promised Messiah, came to earth to save us from original sin. This story shaped entire civilizations, built empires, and moved mountains of faith. But what if I told you this is just one version of the prophecy? What if there are other interpretations, equally valid, that were systematically suppressed by religious institutions? The Bible, you know, went through countless editions, translations, and adjustments. Texts like the Book of Enoch, considered sacred for centuries, were banned from the official canon. Why? What did these texts reveal about the nature of the Messiah that so threatened religious authorities? The answer might lie in the threat they posed to institutional control of faith. Think about this. If Jesus was the only possible savior, why did other cultures, completely isolated from Christianity, develop similar messianic prophecies? Why did Zoroastrianism, thousands of years before Christ, already speak of a savior born from a virgin? Why do Hindu texts describe divine avatars who come to save humanity in times of crisis? Coincidence? Or is there something much bigger that organized religions don't want you to know? The truth is, the narrative of a single savior might have been a political and spiritual strategy to centralize religious power. Imagine if you discovered that the concept of Messiah is much broader, much more personal, and much more liberating than they made you believe. Imagine if the real original sin was convincing us we need an intermediary to connect with the divine. Practical action. Close your eyes right now and reflect. What's your greatest spiritual desire? Is it healing, prosperity, knowledge, purpose? Traditional religion teaches you that only through Jesus can you achieve these blessings. But what if there were other paths? What if practices considered forbidden, like deep meditation, connection with ancestral energies, or even certain forms of magic, could connect you directly with the divine? Wasn't the fear of these practices planted precisely to keep you dependent on institutions? Here is the question that could change everything. What if the true Messiah isn't a being who already came, or will still come, but rather a consciousness, a state of being that each of us can achieve? What if the second coming isn't a physical event, but a collective awakening of humanity to its own divine power? What we'll discover next will challenge everything you know about prophecy, salvation, and your role in this world. We are going to investigate what Judaism itself, the religion that gave birth to Christianity, really says about the Messiah. And brace yourself, the answer might completely surprise you. If this reflection touched something deep in your soul, if you feel there's more truth beyond what you've been taught, comment "Hidden Truth" so I know you're ready for this journey of discovery. Like this video if you have the courage to question, and subscribe to the channel, because we're just beginning to unveil the greatest mysteries of human spirituality. Why Jews refuse to accept Jesus as Messiah, the real reason. Here's something that might shock you. The very people who originated the messianic prophecy, the Jews, don't recognize Jesus as the promised Messiah. It's not out of stubbornness or spiritual blindness. It's because the original prophecy speaks of something completely different from what Christianity teaches. And when you discover what it really says, you will understand why this version was adapted to create one of the world's largest religions. For Judaism, the Mashiach isn't a God who dies and resurrects. He's not a spiritual savior who redeems us from original sin. The Mashiach is a human leader, a direct descendant of King David, who will come to restore Israel, rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, and bring physical world peace, not just spiritual. See the difference? While Christianity spiritualized the prophecy, Judaism maintained its earthly and practical essence. Even more intriguing, according to the original prophecy, when the true Mashiach comes, there will be no more war, no more hunger, no more injustice. The entire world will recognize God and live in harmony. Look around. Did this happen after Jesus? Obviously not. That's why Jews continue waiting. But here is what is truly revolutionary. Judaism teaches that the Mashiach will only come when humanity is ready. It's not about passively waiting for salvation. It's about creating the conditions for salvation to manifest. Every act of justice, every gesture of kindness, every moment you choose good over evil, you're bringing the world closer to the Messianic age. Practical action. Think of an injustice you witnessed recently. It could be something small, it's someone being mistreated, or something big, or a social inequality. Now imagine that you have the power to be part of the solution. Judaism teaches that each of us is a potential Mashiach, not a divine savior, but an agent of transformation. What powerful responsibility, right? This leads us to a profound reflection. What if the idea of an external savior was created precisely to remove our responsibility to be the saviors? What if we were convinced we're incapable sinners so we wouldn't realize our own divine power? The Jewish concept of Mashiach is dangerous to control systems because it puts power in the hands of the people, not in the hands of institutions. There is still another fascinating aspect. Judaism speaks of a messianic soul that reincarnates throughout history in different leaders who come to elevate humanity's consciousness. Moses had this soul, David had this soul, and according to some Jewish mystics, this soul continues manifesting in great spiritual leaders, regardless of religion or culture. This means the true Messiah might not be a person, but an energy, a consciousness that manifests in multiple forms throughout human history. Gandhi had this energy when he liberated India through nonviolence. Martin Luther King had this energy when he dreamed of racial equality. You might have this energy when you choose to transform your life and the lives of others. But if Judaism still waits and Christianity proclaims he already came, what do traditions that don't have a concept of a savior Messiah say? What you'll discover in the next part might completely revolutionize your understanding of salvation and self-discovery. If the idea that you can be a messianic agent of transformation in the world resonates with your soul, comment "Inner Mashiach" so I know you're understanding the true power that exists within you. Like this video if you're ready to take responsibility for your spiritual evolution. Buddha's secret that Christianity doesn't want you to know. Prepare for a spiritual shock. There is a perspective on salvation that could completely free you from the need for any external savior. Eastern traditions develop something the West still struggles to understand. The idea that you were already born with everything you need for your own enlightenment. There's no Messiah waiting for you. There's no God judging you. There's only you and your infinite potential to awaken. Buddha Siddhartha Gautama never proclaimed himself a savior. He didn't even proclaim himself a god. When asked if he was divine, he answered, "I am someone who awakened." And this answer carries a revolution. If Buddha awakened, you can too. If Buddha found peace, you can too. If Buddha transcended suffering, you can too. You don't need intermediaries. You don't need institutions. You don't need saviors. You just need dedication to your own inner growth. In Buddhism, the closest concept to a savior is the bodhisattva, a being who achieved enlightenment but chose to remain in the cycle of rebirths to help others awaken. But note the crucial difference. The bodhisattva doesn't save anyone. They just show the way. The journey, the transformation, the awakening, all of this is your responsibility. What a liberating and simultaneously challenging concept. Practical action. Remember a moment in your life when you overcame enormous difficulty alone. It could have been depression, addiction, loss, paralyzing fear. Relive the feeling of power you felt when you realized that you were capable of finding the solution within yourself. That's the feeling of Buddhist awakening. You've already experienced being your own savior and didn't even realize it. Hinduism adds another fascinating layer: the avatars. Vishnu, for example, periodically incarnates as Rama, Krishna, and according to some traditions, Buddha and even Jesus might have been avatars. But here's the secret: avatars don't come to save humanity from sin. They come to restore dharma, cosmic balance, and mainly to remind humanity of its own divinity. Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, says something revolutionary to Arjuna: whenever there is decline of virtue and rise of vice, I manifest myself to protect the good, destroy the wicked, and re-establish Dharma. But what he is really saying is that the divine manifests through humanity when it takes responsibility for creating balance in the world. This means every time you choose compassion instead of anger, you're being an avatar. Every time you choose truth instead of lies, you're manifesting the divine. Every time you transform your pain into wisdom, you're fulfilling an avatar's purpose. You don't need to wait for a savior because you are the savior you were waiting for. But here is what could completely transform your life. Eastern traditions teach that suffering is end punishment for original sin. Suffering is a teacher. Pain is a guide. Challenges are growth opportunities. When you change your perspective on life's difficulties, you become spiritually invincible. Buddhism teaches there are four noble truths. Life contains suffering. Suffering has a cause, our attachments and desires. It's possible to cease suffering, and there's a path to this cessation. Note, there's no mention of sin, divine judgment, or need for external salvation. There's just a clear diagnosis and practical treatment that you can apply. Eastern wisdom doesn't promise you'll never face challenges. It promises that when you understand the true nature of reality, that everything is impermanent, that your true essence is consciousness itself, that peace is your natural state, no external circumstance can disturb your inner equilibrium permanently. The most radical teaching might be this: you are not a broken being needing fixing. You are not a sinner needing redemption. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing a human form, with all the power of the universe flowing through you right now. The awakening isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about remembering what you've always been. If you are starting to realize that maybe you already have within yourself everything you need for your own spiritual transformation, if the idea of being your own guru resonates with your soul, comment "I am enough," so I know you are ready to take full responsibility for your spiritual growth. Which Messiah will you choose? Your soul depends on it. We've reached the most crucial moment of this journey. You now know three completely different perspectives on salvation. Christianity proclaiming Jesus as the Messiah who already came, Judaism waiting for a Mashiach yet to come, and Eastern traditions teaching that the only savior you need is already within you. But there's a fourth perspective, and it might be the most revolutionary of all. What if all these visions are simultaneously true? Consider this possibility. Jesus brought a message of love and forgiveness that elevated humanity's consciousness. That's undeniable. Future leaders will continue arising to guide humanity in critical moments, as the Mashiach promises. And you possess, right now, the power to transform your reality through inner awakening. These aren't mutually exclusive truths. They're different aspects of the same evolutionary force operating through human history. But here's what could change everything in your life. Regardless of which perspective you choose, there's a common denominator nobody can deny. Whether through faith in Jesus, through action for the Mashiach, or through Buddhist inner awakening, real transformation only happens when you make a conscious decision to change. Definitive practical action. Close your eyes right now and ask your soul this question: which of these truths resonates most deeply with me? Don't think with the mind conditioned by teachings you received. Feel with your heart. Your soul already knows the answer. It always has. The question is, do you have the courage to honor that inner truth, even if it challenges everything you were taught? If you feel you need an external savior, Jesus, a guru, a spiritual leader, honor that. But also honor it by taking active responsibility for your faith, your values, your actions in the world. No savior will do for you what you're not willing to do for yourself. If you feel called to be an agent of transformation in the world, like the Jewish concept of Mashiach suggests, then stop waiting for permission or perfect conditions. Start today. Start now. Every act of justice, every gesture of kindness, every moment you choose to elevate instead of diminish, you're fulfilling the messianic prophecy. If you feel you already possess within yourself everything you need for your enlightenment, as Eastern traditions teach, then stop seeking external validation. Stop looking for the next technique, the next master, the next teaching. Turn inward. Trust the wisdom that already dwells within you. Be your own guru. But what if the deepest truth is that you are simultaneously all these things? A being who can receive divine grace through faith, who can be an agent of transformation in the world, and who possesses enough inner wisdom to navigate any life challenge? What if you discover you don't need to choose between these perspectives, but can integrate all of them into a unique and powerful spiritual approach? History is full of people who did exactly this. Christian mystics who developed profound meditative practices, Kabbalist rabbis who achieved transcendent states of consciousness, and Eastern masters who dedicated their lives to serving humanity. They discovered that spiritual truth is much bigger than any specific religion can contain. Your spiritual journey doesn't need to fit into any predefined box. You can honor Jesus's wisdom, the Mashiach's social responsibility, and Buddha's inner awakening all simultaneously. The question isn't which is right, but how you can integrate the best of each perspective to create a life of meaning, purpose, and genuine transformation. Here is the most liberating truth of all. You don't need anyone's permission to create your own authentic spiritual path. You can take communion and meditate. You can study Kabbalah and practice yoga. You can follow Jesus's teachings and embrace Buddhist mindfulness. The divine is big enough to meet you wherever you are, however you choose to seek. The real question isn't which religion is true. The real question is, how can I live with maximum love, wisdom, and service to others? When you orient your life around that question, denominational differences become irrelevant. You become a living bridge between traditions, embodying the universal truths that connect all authentic spiritual paths. If this journey touched something deep in your soul, if you feel inspired to honor your own spiritual truth, regardless of external labels or expectations, comment "My truth," so I know you're ready to live authentic and integrated spirituality. Like this video if you have the courage to be spiritually yourself, and share it with someone who also seeks their own truth beyond established dogmas.